Reconstruction didn't fail. It was overthrown. It's Monday, February 2nd, and you know what that means. It's time for the Shatterpoint second annual Black History Month extravaganza. Over on the Shatterpoint, we're not doing Black History Month the way it's typically done. We're not going to talk about peanut pressing machines, and we're not going to uplift the same people that you've heard about every year for the last 45 years of your life. Those people are critically important and deserve to be uplifted. But every single person is going to tell you the same 24 stories this month, and I just don't have the energy, and I don't have the time. Over here, we're doing real Black History Month, real Black American history without the gobbledygook that the government wants us to tell you. They don't like it, and that's why we gotta do it. So let's jump right in. After the Civil War, the federal government undertook one of the most sweeping democratic experiments in U.S. history. Through constitutional amendments and federal law, it enforced black citizenship and political participation in states that had built their power on slavery. Formerly enslaved people voted, they served on juries, they held public office. For the first time, public education systems expanded across the South, funded and structured by state governments that now included black lawmakers. Between 1868 and 1876, more than 2,000 black men held elected office at the local, state, and federal levels. That included members of Congress and U.S. senators. This was not symbolic inclusion, it was the exercise of real governing power inside a multiracial democracy. And that democracy did not exist by accident, it existed because the federal government at the time chose to enforce it. Under the Reconstruction Acts of 1867, Southern states were placed under military districts. Union troops were stationed throughout the region to protect black voters, black office holders, and the legal process itself. Congress understood that without enforcement, constitutional rights become meaningless. White supremacist organizations, most notably the used organized violence, intimidation, and even murder to suppress black political participation. In response, Congress passed the Enforcement Acts in the early 1870s, authorizing federal prosecutions against those who interfered with voting rights and civil liberties. And for a brief period, that enforcement worked. So, what changed? Well, in 1877, Reconstruction was not defeated at the ballot box or discredited by black incompetence. It was simply bargained away. Following a disputed presidential election, white political leaders struck what became known as the Compromise of 1877. Rutherford B. Hayes was awarded the presidency in exchange for a decisive concession: the withdrawal of federal troops from the South. Once those troops were removed, federal enforcement collapsed. Southern state governments moved quickly and with precision. Black voters were targeted through violence, intimidation, and outright assassination. At the same time, states constructed legal barriers, things like poll taxes, literacy tests, and grandfather clauses. These were designed to make black political participation technically illegal while appearing race neutral on paper. The goal was not reform, it was exclusion. The Supreme Court reinforced this retreat from federal responsibility. In the civil rights cases of 1883, the court ruled that the federal government lacked the authority to prohibit racial discrimination by private individuals or businesses. In practice, this decision stripped the Reconstruction Amendments of their enforcement power and provided constitutional cover for what would become segregation. By the 1890s, black Americans were incapable of democratic participation. Reconstruction had been systematically undone because the federal government chose to stop protecting it. This is the reality many accounts avoid. When black Americans had federal protection, multiracial democracy functioned and even flourished. When that protection was withdrawn, white supremacist rule returned not organically, not culturally, but through deliberate political decisions backed by law and violence. Jim Crow was not an accident. It was not the result of a misunderstanding or regional differences. It was the predictable outcome of abandoning federal enforcement and allowing states to nullify constitutional rights in practice. Sound familiar? So when Reconstruction is described as a failure, what that framing conceals is the truth. Equality in this way did not fail on its own. It was overthrown. What's it threatened? Entrenched white power. That's not a failure. It's not a failure of Black Americans. It's a reversal by design. See you tomorrow.